Abandoned and transformed, the darkness of space pressed against the viewport like a living thing, hungry and patient. Commander Asher Caney watched his breath fog the reinforced glass as the last engines of the UES Dauntless flared blue-white against the black. They were leaving. His own crew, his own people, leaving him behind. "This is Commander Kane to Dauntless. Respond, damn it." His voice cracked from hours of repeating the same message. The comms unit only returned static, the same hissing emptiness that had been his only companion since the ship had detached from the ancient station 12 hours ago. The mission had been classified from the start. Investigate an anomalous structure at the edge of the Oort cloud, gather data, return with findings. Simple. Until they'd actually reached it, a massive alien construct of unknown origin, dormant for what their initial scans suggested was millennia. Caney had led the exploration team while Captain Dahl remained on the Dauntless. What they found inside changed everything. The station hummed around him now, strange angular corridors lit with a pale blue luminescence that had activated when they'd first boarded. His team had discovered chambers filled with technology beyond human understanding, databases in an alien script that their linguists had barely begun to decipher. Then the order had come. Immediate extraction, only essential personnel. And somehow, the mission commander wasn't deemed essential. Caney checked his oxygen levels again. 14% and falling. The suit wasn't designed for extended use, and the station's life support systems remained dormant, despite all his attempts to activate them. Death was coming, measured in percentages and minutes. "So this is how it ends," he murmured, placing his gloved hand against the cold viewport. Abandoned for following orders. Something inside the station responded to his words, or perhaps to his despair. A tremor ran through the deck plates beneath his boots. The blue light intensified, pulsing like a heartbeat. Caney turned, his breath catching as a section of wall that had previously appeared solid began to reconfigure itself, particles flowing like liquid metal. "What the?" The transformation continued until a doorway stood where solid wall had been, moments before. Beyond it lay a chamber he and his team hadn't discovered in their initial exploration. Without options and with oxygen dwindling, Caney stepped through. The chamber was circular, dominated by a central platform surrounded by hovering, crystalline structures. As he approached, the crystals began to spin, faster and faster until they blurred into rings of light. The platform itself glowed, geometric patterns etching themselves into its surface. Caney's suit sensors shrieked warnings as his oxygen dropped, below 10%. Lightheaded, he stumbled forward onto the platform. The moment his boots touched the surface, the station recognized him, or something within him. The rings of light contracted, enveloping him in a cocoon of energy that lifted him from the deck. Pain unlike anything he'd ever experienced tore through his body. It felt as though every cell was being unmade and reconstructed. He screamed until his lungs emptied, but no sound emerged from the energy cocoon. His consciousness fragmented, memories and sensations stretching across what felt like eternity. When awareness returned, Caney found himself lying on the platform. The energy dissipated. He gasped reflexively, expecting the burning sensation of oxygen deprivation, but his lungs filled easily. The HUD on his helmet was dark, the suit's power systems offline, yet he could breathe. More than that, he felt different, stronger, connected. He removed his helmet with trembling hands, testing the atmosphere. Not only could he breathe, but the air tasted clean, processed. Somehow, the station's life support was now functioning, at least in this section. But that wasn't all that had changed. Glowing blue lines traced beneath the skin of his hands, following his veins. When he touched his face, he felt similar markings there. Whatever the station had done to him, it had altered him fundamentally. "What am I now?" he whispered. As if in response, information flooded his mind. Not in words, but in concepts and images. The station was a sentinel post, one of many constructed by an ancient civilization to monitor a cosmic threat. The threat had destroyed them, but not before they'd seeded these stations across the galaxy, waiting for compatible species who might continue their vigil. Caney was now bonded to the station. Its systems were his to command, its knowledge his to access. And with that knowledge came a terrible understanding, the reason he'd been abandoned. The UES Dauntless had discovered fragments of the alien database, enough to understand what the station was monitoring. Captain Dahl had received new orders, directly from Fleet Command. Leave the station, leave Caney and his team, report that the structure had self-destructed, because what the station watched for was approaching, and Earth's leaders had decided that evacuation of the elite few was preferable to preparing humanity as a whole. They'd left him to die because he knew too much. The alien technology now merged, with his body offered imagery of the threat, a cosmic entity that fed on stars, leaving dead systems in its wake. According to the station's calculations, it would reach Sol system within 5 years. The government had chosen to build arcs for the wealthy and powerful, while keeping the truth from everyone else. Rage built within him, a cold fury that made the blue lines beneath his skin pulse brighter. The station responded to his emotion, systems activating throughout its vast structure. Displays flickered to life in the air around him, showing the full extent of the installation, far larger than his team had mapped in their brief exploration. "They left me here to die," Caney said, his voice steady despite the anger coursing through him. "But I'm still alive, and now I know what's coming." Over the next weeks, Caney explored the station with new eyes, literally. His vision had enhanced, allowing him to see energy signatures and structural patterns invisible before. The alien technology integrated into his body continued to change him, strengthening his muscles, sharpening his mind, granting him interface capabilities with the station's systems. He discovered he wasn't the only one left behind. 3 members of his exploration team had been trapped in a distant section when the Dauntless detached. Following the station's guidance, he found them, barely alive, their oxygen depleted to critical levels. The station couldn't bond with them as it had with him. That process had been keyed to his command neural patterns, but it could sustain them, heal them. Specialist Maya Chen, the team's xenobiologist, was the first to regain consciousness. Her eyes widened at the sight of him, at the glowing lines beneath his skin. "Commander," she whispered, "what happened to you?" "I've changed," he replied simply. "And so has our mission." As the others recovered, Engineer Paulo Reyes and Security Officer Deanne Ellis, Caney explained what he'd learned, the cosmic entity, the government's betrayal, the station's purpose. "So what do we do now?" Ellis asked, her hand instinctively reaching for a sidearm that had been discarded with her depleted suit. Caney's gaze turned to the viewport, to the stars beyond. "We warn them, all of them, not just the ones deemed worthy of survival." "How?" Reyes gestured around them. "We're stranded on an alien station billions of kilometers from Earth. We have no ship, no communications array powerful enough." A smile crossed Kane's face, making the luminous patterns shift. "We have something better." He raised his hand, and holographic displays appeared around them, showing schematics that responded to his thoughts. The station was designed to be modular. With the right configuration, sections of it can detach, become vessels of their own. "You're saying we can turn part of this place into a ship?" Chen asked, leaning forward to study the displays. "I'm saying we can turn part of it into a fleet." Caney's eyes glowed with the same blue energy that now coursed through his veins. "And we're not going to stop at Earth. There are human colonies throughout the system, research outposts, mining stations, places filled with people who deserve a chance to survive. The government will try to stop us," Ellis warned. "They'll label us traitors, terrorists. Let them try." Caney's voice hardened. "I've accessed the station's communications array. Before we leave, I'm going to broadcast everything we've learned on all emergency channels. The truth about what's coming. The truth about why we were abandoned." He looked at each of them in turn. These people who had followed him into the unknown and now stood with him at the edge of a new chapter for humanity. "They left us to die," he said quietly. "But humanity doesn't abandon its own. Not all of it. There are good people out there who will stand with us when they learn the truth. And together we might just have a chance against what's coming." Around them, the ancient station hummed with awakened power, sections beginning to reconfigure as Caney directed its transformation. In the vastness of space, abandoned and changed, a new hope was taking form. Not in the corridors of power where secrets were kept, but in the hearts of those who had been deemed expendable. The stars watched, indifferent to the struggles of sentient beings. But somewhere in the darkness between them, a cosmic hunger was approaching. And Asher Caney, once abandoned and left, for dead, now stood as the first line of defense that humanity never knew it needed. He wasn't just returning home. He was bringing the future with him. The return and revelation. The void between worlds was no longer empty to Asher Caney. Where once he had seen only darkness punctuated by distant stars, he now perceived currents of energy, gravitational eddies, and the subtle radiation signatures of celestial bodies. The alien technology integrated into his system had transformed his perception along with his body. 6 months had passed since his abandonment. 6 months of preparation, of transformation, of planning. Now their vessel, fashioned from a detached section of the Sentinel station, sliced through space at velocities that human engineering had never achieved. "We'll reach the Neptune defense perimeter in approximately 18 hours, Maya Chen reported from her station. The formerly cramped chamber had reconfigured itself to accommodate human ergonomics, though the alien aesthetic remained in the flowing organic lines of the interfaces. Caney nodded, the luminous patterns beneath his skin pulsing with his heartbeat. "Any response to our broadcasts?" "Nothing official," Paulo Reyes replied, his fingers dancing over holographic controls that responded as much to thought as to touch. "But we're picking up increased chatter on military bands. They know we're coming. And they know what we know," Ellis added grimly, "which makes us a threat." Caney turned his gaze to the secondary display showing their growing fleet. What had begun as one vessel had multiplied during their journey through the outer system. First had come the mining outposts, on the moons of Jupiter and Saturn, their crews responding to Caney's broadcast with both fear and determination. Then the research stations scattered throughout the asteroid belt, scientists and engineers who understood all too well the implications of what was approaching. Now, 27 ships of various configurations followed in their wake. Some were human vessels repurposed and enhanced with alien technology. Others were additional modules from the Sentinel station, activated from dormancy by Caney's evolved connection to the ancient systems. "They may see us as a threat," Caney replied, "but we're bringing them salvation whether they recognize it or not." The message that had accompanied their approach was simple: the truth. The cosmic entity that devoured stars. The government's plan to save only a selected elite. The alien technology that offered another path, not escape but resistance. "Incoming transmission," Chen announced suddenly. "Military encryption, but it's not coming from the defense fleet. It's being broadcast on a frequency reserved for special operations." Caney felt a surge of curiosity. "Put it through." The holographic display flickered before resolving into the face of a woman with steel-gray hair and the hard eyes of someone who had seen too much conflict. The insignia on her uniform marked her as Admiral Helena Reeves, commander of the Sol System Defense Force. "Commander Caney," she said, voice steady but tight with suppressed emotion. "We were told you were dead." "Not dead, Admiral," Caney replied. "Just inconvenient." Reeves's expression didn't change, but something in her eyes did, a flash of recognition, perhaps even shame. "The Joint Chiefs are preparing to engage your fleet when you cross Neptune's orbit. They're calling you a foreign agent, compromised by alien influence. And what do you think I am?" "I think," Reeves said carefully, "that you're still the same stubborn idealist who graduated top of his class at the academy. The same officer who risked court-martial to evacuate civilians on Ganymede during the riots. I think you believe you're doing the right thing, but I need to know if it's still you in there, Asher." The use of his first name wasn't lost on Caney. They had history, mentor, and protege before political appointment had elevated Reeves to her current position. "It's me," he answered. "Changed, but not replaced, not controlled." The technology has enhanced me, not overwritten me. Then explain to me why I shouldn't consider your approach with a fleet of alien vessels an act of aggression. Caney leaned forward, the blue light from his skin reflecting off the polished surfaces around him. Because you've seen the same reports I have. You know what's coming, and I suspect you know about the arcs too. Reeves's silence was confirmation enough. They left us behind, Admiral, Caney continued. Not just me and my team. They're planning to leave behind 99% of humanity, but we have another option. With a thought, he sent data streaming through the connection, schematics, technical readouts, defensive capabilities that the Sentinel station had developed over millennia. We don't need to run, he said as Reeves studied the information with widening eyes. We can fight. The technology I've brought back can be adapted to human vessels, human defense systems. We can protect Sol system, not abandon it. They'll never agree to this, Reeves said quietly. There's too much invested in the ARC program. Too many powerful people counting on their golden tickets to survival. Then help us bypass them, Caney urged. You have the command codes for the defense. Grid, let us through. Give us a chance to present our case directly to humanity. For a long moment, Reeves was silent, her gaze distant as she weighed decades of military loyalty against the evidence before her. Finally, she spoke. Neptune Defense Perimeter will experience a systems diagnostic in 15 hours. It should last approximately 30 minutes. Her eyes met Caney's. Don't make me regret this, Asher. The transmission ended, leaving the command chamber in silence. Can we trust her? Ellis asked. Caney nodded slowly. If she wanted to stop us, she wouldn't have warned us. She would have let us fly straight into a trap. Reyes looked up from his station. Commander, we're receiving new transmissions. Hundreds of them from all over the system. Civilian channels, military back channels, colonial frequencies. They're responding to our broadcast, Chen realized, scanning the incoming messages. Not just responding, organizing. Look at these signatures. Ships' captains, station managers, colonial administrators. They're pledging support. A grim smile crossed Kane's face. Humanity looking out for its own. Pass the word through the fleet, we're going in. The Neptune Defense Perimeter, true to Admiral Reeves's word, went dark precisely when they approached. Their growing fleet, now numbering over 50 vessels, of various sizes and configurations, passed through the outer boundary of Earth's primary defensive line without resistance. But their progress didn't go unnoticed for long. Multiple launches detected from Mars orbital platform, Ellis reported, her voice tight. Military vessels on intercept course. And from Earth, Chen added. The orbital defense fleet is mobilizing. 7 capital ships, dozens of support craft. Caney studied the tactical display, watching as human warships converged on their position from multiple vectors. Open a system-wide channel, maximum broadcast strength. When the connection was established, he spoke not just to the approaching vessels, but to every receiver in the system. This is Commander Asher Caney of the United Earth Navy, formerly of the UES Dauntless. I was abandoned on an alien installation 6 months ago because I discovered something our government didn't want known. Now I'm bringing the truth, and the means to survive it. He paused, allowing his words to reach across the vast distances of the solar system. A cosmic entity is approaching our system, one that consumes stars and all life within them. Your leaders have known this for over a year. Their response was to build arcs for themselves and a chosen few, while sentencing the rest of humanity to extinction. The tactical display showed the approaching warships slowing their advance, hesitating. I bring an alternative. The technology that saved me, that changed me, can be adapted to defend our entire system. We don't need to abandon Earth or Mars or any human settlement. We can stand and fight together. He gestured, and the alien vessel transmitted technical data to every ship and station within range. Proof of his claims, evidence of the capability he offered. I'm not asking you to follow me. I'm asking you to choose survival, not just for the privileged few, but for all of humanity. Stand with us. For several tense minutes, nothing happened. The military vessels held position, neither advancing nor retreating. Then, one by one, signals began to appear on the tactical display, ships changing course, moving to join their fleet rather than oppose it. "Sir," Chen said, her voice filled with wonder, "the orbital defense fleet, they're standing down, and the flagship is hailing us." The face that appeared on the communication display was not what Caney expected. Not a military officer, but a civilian. A woman with dark skin and fierce eyes, wearing the formal collar of the United Earth Government's Executive Council. "Commander Caney," she said, "I am Counselor Imani Okafor. Your broadcast has forced some uncomfortable revelations within our government." "Uncomfortable truths," Caney corrected. Indeed, Okafor's expression was grave but determined. "There has been an emergency session of the Council. Those responsible for the ARC program and the decision regarding your mission have been removed from authority." Caney's eyes narrowed. "And you expect me to believe the government has simply changed its mind?" "Not simply, no." Okafor's gaze was steady. "Admiral Reeves presented your data to key military leaders. They, in turn, presented an ultimatum to the Council. Embrace your solution or face mutiny. It seems humanity has indeed decided not to abandon its own." Relief and vindication washed through Caney, making the luminous patterns beneath his skin pulse brighter. But he knew better than to celebrate prematurely. "The entity is still coming," he said. "We have preparations to make, technology to adapt, defenses to build. Then let us begin," Okafor replied. "You are cleared to approach Earth orbital stations. A joint scientific and military team has been assembled to work with you and your people." The transmission ended, and Caney turned to his crew, the original 3 who had been abandoned with him, now joined by dozens more who had chosen to undergo the same transformation, to bond with the alien technology that had saved him. "We're going home," he said simply. Ellis shook her head, the blue lines beneath her skin catching the light. "No, Commander. We're saving home." The day the cosmic entity reached Sol system, humanity was ready. A defensive grid powered by adapted alien technology encircled the Sun, extending outward past the orbit of Mercury. Earth's orbital platforms had been retrofitted with energy weapons that could pierce the entity's semi-physical form. Colony ships stood ready near Jupiter, not to flee, but to preserve a seed of humanity should the defense fail. In the command center of Earth's primary defense platform, Commander Asher Kane, now officially reinstated with the rank of Admiral, watched as the entity emerged from the darkness between stars. It defied conventional description, a shifting mass of energy and matter that bent light around it, trailing wisps of consumed stellar material in its wake. "All defense grid stations report ready," Chen announced from her position at the operations console. Over the past 4 years, she had risen to become Caney's second-in-command, her body now as transformed by alien technology as his own. "Planetary shields at maximum capacity," Reyes added. Like all those who had chosen integration with the Sentinel technology, his physical appearance had changed. Skin marked with luminous patterns, eyes that perceived beyond normal human spectrum. "This is it," Caney said quietly. "Initiate phase 1. Around the Sun, the defense grid activated, sending pulses of energy through the star's corona. The alien technology had taught them to use their own sun as a weapon, channeling its immense power against the approaching threat. The entity responded as expected, accelerating toward the energy discharge rather than away, drawn to the power like a predator to blood in the water. As it closed the distance, the secondary defenses engaged, networks of satellites focusing concentrated energy beams on the entity's structure. For hours, the battle raged across the inner solar system. The entity proved adaptive, changing its approach, seeking weaknesses in the defense grid. Stations were lost, brave crews sacrificed to buy time as the entity's tendrils lashed out against humanity's shields. "Grid sections 3 through 7 are failing," Ellis reported, her voice steady despite the dire news. "The entity is learning our patterns." Caney nodded grimly. They had anticipated this. Initiate Phase 2. Throughout the system, human vessels with retrofitted alien drives moved into position, not to attack the entity directly, but to establish a secondary energy grid, one powered not by technology alone, but by the neurological patterns of the integrated humans aboard each ship. Neural sync established, Chen confirmed. All phase, 2 vessels report ready. Caney closed his eyes, feeling the connection form between his consciousness and the vast network now spanning the solar system. Every integrated human, thousands now, each a volunteer, each understanding the risk, joined in a mental lattice that channeled both thought and energy. When Caney spoke again, his voice resonated with the power of thousands. We are humanity. This is our home. And we will not be devoured. The neural grid flared to life, a web of blue-white energy that encased the cosmic entity in a containment field, unlike anything human science alone could have created. The entity writhed, its tendrils slashing at the energy barrier as it sensed, for the first time in its ancient existence, the possibility of defeat. Across the system, integrated humans strained under the mental pressure, their bodies glowing, brighter as they channeled more power into the containment field. Some faltered, their lights flickering out as the effort proved too great. But others stepped forward to fill the gaps, the neural network adapting, strengthening. On the command platform, Caney felt his consciousness expand beyond the confines of his physical form, merging with the collective effort of humanity's defense. Through this expanded awareness, he perceived the entity not as a mindless force but as a sentient hunger, ancient and endless, until now. Final phase, he commanded, his voice echoing through the neural network. All ships, converge. The vessels of the human fleet, each carrying a portion of the adapted Sentinel technology, moved into a spherical formation around the contained entity. As they reached position, each ship extended energy tethers, connecting to the others, until they formed a lattice of light around the struggling cosmic predator. Core overload in 15 seconds, Reyes announced, his own consciousness partly submerged in the neural network. 10 seconds, Chen counted. 9, 8. Caney addressed the entity directly through the neural connection, not with words, but with intent. You will not have our star. You will not have our home. This ends now. 3, 2, 1. The combined cores of the human fleet detonated in synchronized precision. Not a destructive explosion, but a controlled energy release, channeled through the neural network and concentrated inward. The entity convulsed as the energy penetrated, its semi-physical form, disrupting the exotic matter that comprised its being. For one breathtaking moment, the inner solar system blazed with light brighter than the sun itself. Then, gradually, the illumination faded, revealing empty space where the cosmic threat had been, neutralized, dispersed into harmless particles that would eventually be swept up by the solar wind. In the aftermath, as damage reports flowed in and recovery operations began, Caney stood at the viewport of the command platform watching the distant Earth, blue and whole, protected not by abandonment, but by unity. Admiral Reeves joined him, her uniform bearing the marks of battle, but her eyes bright with the same fierce pride he remembered from his academy days. They're calling it the Sentinel victory, she said quietly. The first time in recorded history that humanity has faced an extinction-level threat and prevailed through cooperation rather than sacrifice. Caney nodded, the luminous patterns beneath his skin pulsing with his heartbeat. Not the last threat we'll face. The station's archives showed others. Different, but equally dangerous. But we'll face them together, Reeves replied. No more arcs, no more chosen few. A small smile crossed Kane's face as he gazed out at the stars, no longer distant and cold, but filled with possibility and connection. They left me to die in space, he said softly. But humanity doesn't forget its own. Around him, the integrated humans who had become his family nodded in silent agreement. They had been abandoned, left behind, deemed expendable. Now they stood as guardians, their transformation not a loss of humanity but its evolution, its salvation. And somewhere in the depths of space, other Sentinel stations waited, their ancient systems stirring as they detected the successful defense of a star system against the very threat they had been created to monitor. New connections forming, new possibilities emerging. The story of humanity among the stars was just beginning.